Right, everybody, welcome to the first D1A meeting of the full season. Um, I think we got a long season coming up, and we got a lot of games that we have to cover, and really appreciate everyone's commitment to accepting their assignments. And we've released the next, I think, 3 weeks, all the way to the third week of October. If you want to look at those assignments, the other thing that's happened is that because we had some issues getting the videos. I know it was just the first week. Um, that the D1A has also created a public folder online where they will add the videos. So if they're not on the actual assignments page, we can look in the folder. But the team's coaches are the head coaches are on the second page, so the home team's responsible for the video. Again, if they use VO for the games, they have to make available the video to be downloaded, right? So I think some of the new teams that are starting to use VO don't know how to do that. But they, as administrators of their own account, they can make the video downloadable. So you just have to remind them. And I think if you're at the games, you can probably see if there's VO cameras being used. So with that said, as I mentioned in the last meeting too, please make sure that everybody that you watch the GMG video, it's on the USA Rugby website. We sent the link out, and then also go through the GMG book, because that is the approach that we're taking in the game across all the units. So with that said, we're going to start with Craig and Peter on Navy against Trinity from Ireland. Craig.
Yep. So this was last Tuesday. It was a very, very hot day. I think by the time I left at 5:30, it was still 98 degrees. So that definitely played a factor into this. Going into it, I knew Navy was going to try and wear down Trinity with their fitness, but it actually, at the end of the day, Trinity was still standing and Navy was kind of the ones falling over. So it was kind of very interesting to see. Navy performed well. They were trying to do a lot more ball in hand and move the ball quickly, as opposed to last season where it's a lot more kind of the ground and pound game. But unfortunately for them, Trinity just kind of answered and kind of just performed each step a little bit better than they did. Going into the half, it was only 5-0, and then Navy scored a quick try the second half. Then all of a sudden, just kind of Trinity came back, started dominating everything. Navy's fitness started to dive, and then Navy finally scored their last try actually at full time. So up until the last minute, it was 7-33 for the pretty much all of the second half. So going into the match, my three big focus areas were going to be on the scrum, on not over managing the breakdown, and then also with creating space. So my idea was that if I create good space and we have good kind of open ability for the players to run through and demonstrate what they can do on attack, it should help clear up the breakdowns, because we're not going to have just a ton of bodies falling into there. And work hard not to micromanage. Kind of the trigger point for me is that in my past seasons, I've been very quick to try and get in front of potential ruck penalties and penalizing the tackler issues very quickly. And so I was having really high penalty counts when, if I'd paused a little bit, it could have allowed the players to resolve the issue themselves. So my trigger for this match was going to be to make sure that I wasn't trying to make that decision until there was a potential ball carrier or somebody that was going to be playing kind of in the scrum half role arrive to the breakdown, to then see kind of has what the other team done actually impacted or not. And it worked really well for this match. I think I only had four tackle penalties and two ruck penalties, so it definitely kind of allowed the players to decide the outcome of the match a lot better than me having to insert myself. Scrums were a little tricky. We'll look at some of them tonight, but part of the issue was, I think I was too empathetic, and while I could identify where the issue was, I was more lenient to having a restart than I would just a quick free kick to try and change behavior. And so it kind of allowed the scrums to get away from me a little bit.
Great, Peter. Before we go to clips, hmm. Did Peter not make the meeting? I don't see him. So, Craig, you're on your own.
Okay. So most of my clips for tonight are just going to be looking at kind of game decisions on most of them are going to be should there have been escalation? So should a penalty been escalated up to a yellow card? Should there have been a potential penalty try? And just kind of looking at kind of the more contextual of do we think it's a deliberate foul or infringement, or is this something where it was just kind of a brain fart and did the game kind of need the escalation or not? So we can start with I guess scrum one to begin with. So essentially, all of this is going to be is showing kind of this is fairly early into the second half. Just kind of shows by this point in the match, I think the fitness for Navy started to dip a little bit, and we can see kind of just how dominant Trinity Scrum starts becoming. So this is going to set the stage kind of for the next clip. But up until here, there was no audio for the film, so we don't need to worry about that. But up until here, during the first half, they were fairly even, and then, like I said, all of a sudden, Trinity just starts dominating everything. So we can end the clip there, or it goes into a try right afterwards. But again, this is kind of more or less to set the stage for this next clip, which is going to be the penalty try. So we've now seen kind of what Trinity is able to start producing with their scrums. So with this one, we're going to have a scrum where, again, Navy starts to pull out. Ultimately, Trinity will lose the ball forward because essentially they kind of are running faster than they can keep the ball in control, and they lose it forward. Because of that, I just go back to an initial penalty, but I'm wondering if, are we thinking that this should have been a penalty try, or, did the game need it or not?
Any thoughts out there, anyone?
I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll let others chime in first.
We'll find out if Jamie's and Tig's thoughts are the same.
Oops, what's that?
I need the refs to pipe up.
All right, I'll go ahead and embarrass myself here. I think White just lost control. Is it not on them to keep, if they've got that dominant pack, is it not on them to keep control as they're going forward? And they lost it. They kicked it forward. Okay. Anyone else? Crickets?
So I was kind of the same opinion, which is why I didn't initially go to the penalty try. In kind of reviewing it with Peter, Peter was we were talking about kind of the chicken and the egg, and essentially the fact that because Blue pulled out is what caused that increase in speed and momentum from White, which then caused them to lose it forward. So this one I thought was a pretty good discussion clip, just because I don't think it's a clear black and white of, they clearly collapse it right there at the goal line or anything like that. It's kind of a, Blue is at fault for pulling out, which garners White the penalty. But then at the same time, similar to your comment, does White then have an obligation though to do everything right to be rewarded with that penalty try, or had they done everything correctly in showing the initial dominance, and so the expected outcome would be the penalty try?
Yeah, I mean, I would say because you set the stage earlier with how dominant White is, it's going to be really on. You're going to be looking toward Blue making the mistake. White is doing everything pretty right. So unless Blue is perfect somehow, even though they're getting blown away, I think I understand why you're looking for a penalty for white, and maybe that is the right way to manage the game. Kind of calling it to expected outcome.
Craig, this is Tig. I don't think you can play advantage from this situation. With white driving that dominantly forward, at the point where you decide it's a penalty at all, it's a penalty try.
And Tig with the curveball.
Everybody happy with that, or are there any other thoughts out there?
Who gets the yellow card then?
You don't have to give a yellow card for a penalty for a scrum penalty try.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just have a general question. It's something that we addressed years ago. How long after the scrum disintegrates does a scrum continue? As in, if you were playing advantage, if you were calling the penalty, after that scrum is kind of no more, how long do we let that go before calling it?
Well, in this situation, as Tig said, if the penalty try is on, the penalty try is on, there's no advantage. You can't have anything better than 7 points, right? But I think in the other scrum, you can just play it by ear and see, like, they get the ball out, they're going to do something with it or not, or you just want to give the penalty, But in many of these occasions when one team is being dominated like this, if you're going to yellow card somebody in the scrum, the domination is going to get bigger and bigger, especially the situation. And you can see that the way that does that answer your question?
Not really, but I think for sake of continuing, just continue. I think it's more in reference to the previous scrum than this.
I have a question. If you're giving a penalty try here, what do you tell to blue that so they can change their behavior not to have the same thing happen again? Because they can't actually really contest the scrum effectively.
They can stay straight and go backwards straight.
Yeah.
That's what they have to do. They can't turn left effectively and disengage. They just have to take their medicine, stay straight. And to be honest, from a refereeing perspective, you would say the same thing to white, which is, you stay straight and it's going to make the whole thing a lot easier. Where things get tricky is then if white, take overly advantage and white start turning, they're the ones who are actually turning the scrum, then you're less likely to give the penalty, let alone the penalty try here. So you kind of got to work really hard to keep both teams as straight as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I think, what you do in these situations, just make sure that your setup is really, really good and really, really straight. And if you look at the scrum here, you can see that the blue tight head doesn't look like he wants to scrum anymore, right? So he's already hiding as they go down, so the blue tight head over here, hiding under his hooker, trying to get as far back as possible, so, an angle, got his head down.
The piece, Richard, I just wanted to add here, if I may, is born from whatever little experience I might have refereeing. If you don't blow this as a penalty try, at some point in your career, you will have 12 more scrums right on the spot without the team moving forward, and you will regret not taking the first real opportunity you had when it was an obvious penalty and an obvious penalty try. So, I mean, I'm not saying blow penalty tries in situations where they're not, but you will regret not taking the opportunity when one presents itself to you. Your punishment will be another 7 scrums that collapse right on the 5, and you have to deal with that and deal with yellow cards and things like that. And that will be your punishment. So anyway,
look at what happened to Paddy O'Brien in that World Cup way back when.
Geez, now we're going way back. Half the people on this call weren't born when that happened.
Well, let them do some research.
And especially if the game is being broadcast and you run out of broadcast time, and you don't get to see the end of the game, and the game ends at like 109 minutes or something. So that hasn't happened before, but maybe it did.
Testing.
Just one other thing that might help the question about the yellow card. I think what the yellow card is looking for is if there is a clear player that is responsible, then you can identify them. When you've got something like this is just a whole failure of the pack and disengaging, and you can't identify one specific individual, then we kind of give them a pass. That I can imagine a penalty try from a scrum where, for example, the flanker comes unbound and completely destroys the opportunity of someone to score, where you may give a yellow card. So I don't want someone to think that you never give a yellow card at a scrum penalty try. But when there are multiple players at fault and you can't isolate a specific intentional infringement that's given away the try, then you can't yellow card everyone. So they kind of get away with it a bit.
So, Richard,
Yes.
This is Bob. I do have a question. We're looking at 79 minutes. I'm not disputing the penalty try. I agree. I get it. So my question is, it's this late in the game, and we're just looking at a static shot of one thing that happened. I'm curious of the lead up to this. What were the scrums leading up to this? Were there issues before? How was it?
Yeah, we just watched one.
So that was one before, but I'm just saying, was it a continuous thing? Was it just this one build up?
Well, that was designed. That one that we showed was designed to be indicative of what the second half had been.
And so the whole thing. Okay, great. Thank you.
Plus, there's actually about 12 minutes left in the game.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So as the law says, if there's a player that's guilty of this, then they must be cautioned or sent off, right? Must be cautioned and temporarily suspended or sent off. So if it's the whole team, you're not going to send everybody off, like the entire scrum, as Jamie mentioned.
Make my scrums a lot easier. So this is, again, kind of with the theme of being empathetic, probably to the wrong direction. So we have blue clearly takes out the kicker. I look to see, White's not going to be able to recover it. In my mind, initially looking at this, my first gauge is kind of what all the other players are reacting to. Are tempers starting to flare? Do they feel hard done? We don't really see that come from the other players. And in my mind, again, kind of looking at it on the film, I'm leaning more towards the yellow card, but on the day, kind of knowing kind of what the temperature of the match had been the entire time. We had been at a good simmer, but we had never boiled over. Tensions weren't high. We were doing a good job with this. And again, looking at kind of how White reacted, it didn't jump to me that a yellow card was needed. White then actually goes, I think right after this, they go up there, they take the scrum, and that's the scrum that leads to the penalty, and then they score right after that we just looked at.
But they didn't take the scrum. You offered the scrum.
Yes.
Which you should have offered a penalty.
Correct.
Yeah. So say that again, Peter.
Obstructing the kicker. Penalty kick where it happens, penalty kick where the ball lands.
Yeah, 15 in, right?
It's not penalty here or scrum up.
Yeah. So I think, and I know this is very early in the season, and these things happen very quickly. But I think, like as a referee in these situations, just think about contextually, and I'm sure a lot of us are going to watch a lot of rugby besides our own games that we referee here. That you can see in the system, and we are going to be watching a lot of World Cup. But one of the things I want definitely take into watching when you're watching games and when you're watching the World Cup is that as situations play out, just think to yourself, like, what's going to happen next? And the more you start thinking what's going to happen next, you'll realize that you probably have way more knowledge about the game and that you have a really good idea of what's going to happen next. And when you have an idea of what's going to happen next and something happens that's illegal, you see it immediately. And I think the more you get into that mindset, it helps you to develop your contextual refereeing and your knowledge of the game or where it is, And I think in this situation, you might go, oh, there's a clear break. It's a great opportunity to score. And then you go, oh, can't believe you tackled the player, right? So you get into situations where This player was in trouble if they didn't stop the white. And I mean, you saw the infringement. So it might be an easy situation to give a yellow card to because, they prevented what could be not a probable try, but a possible try.
Yeah.
Right.
Richard, the other thing that I would give people to think about in this situation is you're not just worrying about the standard for this game. You're setting a standard for the rest of the competition too.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
want these players to learn something and not force another referee into the same situation, same sort of
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Craig? All good?
Yes.
Good stuff. Oh, we just watched that.
And then last one's going to be the mall collapse. So we're going to have a line out that leads to a mall, probably about 15 meters from the goal line. Navy starts with a good drive. It starts to splinter a little bit. The captain of white, number 8, is going to come legally through the middle. And as he comes through, he binds onto the ball carrier at the back of the mall, and then he actually takes him down. So they're penalized for collapsing the mall. And I guess my thought here is, should we have escalated this up to a yellow card? My thoughts behind not is that Navy kind of gets stopped a little bit. And the fact that he's able to swim fully through means that for me, they didn't have a ton of dominance at that point.
Who did you penalize? Number 5?
Number 5, yes. Sorry, I misspoke.
The interesting question is, do you think number 5 was illegal here? I'm just wondering.
It looked like you were talking to him and he was looking at you and then he just went after it afterwards. Did you tell him no or anything?
I was talking to, I believe, the one
Number
player
3.
to loop back around, I think number 3 there.
Okay.
3, yeah. That's number
So
3,
initially he's kind of on the side, and then Navy actually kind of widens the mall and kind of tries to almost go around and envelop him. So that allows him to then kind of swim through and then have access to the ball carrier there at the back.
So he's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He never changed his bind though, right? He never changed his bind. I don't know. I think he looks pretty legal, but any other thoughts out there? What were your thoughts, Peter?
Well, my thought was that it had been driven close to 10 meters before that got taken down.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was still a mall, so he can't take it down. He could have tied the man up and gotten the turnover scrum.
Okay. So you still say penalty for collapsing the mall?
Yeah, I'm going with a penalty, and I'm leaning towards a yellow card. I'm also wish that clip was running just a little bit longer because Navy was trying to take a nice quick tap and Craig wasn't paying attention.
They scored
I'm
off
sure
that
that's
quick
fine.
tap.
Any other thoughts there? People out there? Kat, you with us? Australia, New Zealand? What would you decide?
I'm in agreement that he can come through. I'm probably actually not going to penalize him because I think he does a really good job. And I almost want to argue, like, by the time he's on the blue ball carrier, like maybe it's just the two of them and now it's a tackle and it's, Like
Yep.
I feel like I don't want to penalize that because he's done such a good job of coming through legally and getting on the ball. And yeah, my thoughts.
Yep. Yep. I feel the same way. I think it's I mean, like, to penalize that player, like if they came around the side, they were swimming around the side, it'd be easy call to make, right? Then they're already offside. But I sort of felt like, you know, he was maybe on the side, but he never came in from the side. He was always bound, never broke his bind, and then Navy sort of engulfed him and allowed him to come through the middle and stopped it more. So, and Navy still would have got the ball out, as you could see. They were going to get the ball. So I think it's just, I mean, and these things are very difficult, but the things to look out for is, when the ball is moving, are they coming up the side or entering from the side? Once the ball becomes more static like that, the blue team's obviously lost their dominance. So if nothing illegal had happened at that stage, you don't really want to be rewarding the team that was unable to dominate them all. Is that fair, everybody? I know it's again like sort of contextual stuff that we're talking about. So, but very exciting game, eh, Craig?
Yes, it was a really
a lot
fun
of fast
match
rugby for so
officiate.
early in the season.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great, and I mean, especially from such a low scoring first half to have to just pick it up, especially when Navy scored the try. You're like, this is going to be a game, right?
Right.
And they just picked up the pace. Yeah, very exciting. Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Peter.
Yep.
Tyler.
Hi, Richard. How we doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Is Lee with us too?
She is. She's on the train, so she might not actually be able to talk, but she is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So I had the Army versus Trinity match. It was the last match that Trinity would have in the States before they left. And just like Craig's, it was a great match. I watched a little bit of Craig's match, idea of what expectations I should have going in. And so I saw breakdowns were going to be quick. Trinity really wanted to move fast. So I wanted to do my best to facilitate that. Scrums and lineouts, get the setup right and try and keep that standard the whole way through. And then recognize and escalate sooner than I feel like I have been. 80% there, still some stuff to work on. Lee and I went through the match earlier, and space was good when I was working hard. So when I was in the right spot to catch things, play was great, breakdowns were good. When I was kind of in autopilot and just coasting along, that's where things started going wrong and the urgency wasn't there. Scrums started rough. There was a penalty kick at the first scrum, which we'll see in the clip. So the standard was set, but I kind of loosened up and then tightened up and then loosened up. So there was no consistency there for the team. And then escalation should have come sooner. Army was under a lot of pressure pretty much the whole match after the first 30 minutes. And there was no escalation until later in the game. There was a flare up, nothing serious. Things that could have been handled earlier might have helped to prevent that, or at least keep tempers a little bit cooler.
Yeah. Great. Should we go look at your clips?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Where do we start?
So if you want, we could start at the bottom with the knock on backwards charge down. So a lot of kicking in this match. Trinity kind of figured out that the fullback and the winger for Army were struggling. So Army's recovering, ball mostly goes backward, could have gone forward. 15 gets onside, doesn't get onside, charge the ball down. So there's a lot going on here. Do we think the knock-on was the knock-on? I felt like it was backward enough. He's taken the ball with him. Balls kind of continued rolling back. I said, let's just play through. You're already under pressure. And then the second thing is just 15 fully get back on sides before charging down the kick. So
Close.
yeah, so he's like flirting the line in the moment. I'm a bit too flat, so I felt like he was there. If I was a bit steeper, I think I would have maybe made a different decision. But it's a weird one. Lee and I thought this would be a good point for discussion. So is it clear and obvious that he's not fully on sides, or do you just let this play through and then just go to the goal line dropout?
Hey, it's Khalil. I think if you're questioning was it clear and obvious, then it probably wasn't clear and obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ask your AR for help down there?
No, so we actually had about a 3 hour rain delay, so we didn't have radios. And in this instance, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just trust my gut here. He looked like he was on side enough. If we had radios, I probably would have checked with him. But in the moment, I was like, you know what? Let's just go to the goal line. It feels like it's probably right. Which later in the game ends up biting me the butt because Black was recovering a ball, and I thought he had gathered it and then brought it in goal. And he actually had gathered it already in goal. So should have not trusted my gut on that one and then consulted the AR. So, yeah.
So the one thing is, so the player might not have knocked it on, the ball might have gone backwards, but they were on the ground, they didn't have control of the ball, and then they played it again. So maybe it would have been a penalty advantage to White, or penalty to White immediately. Just wondering. I mean, like once the player's gone to ground, lost control of the ball, they can't grab it again, right? And do all of those things. So they're out of the game. And I think if you have a look back here, you can see number 11. They're pretty confused about all of this. See, they're going, what, ref? Right.
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, in those situations, again, we're talking about early in the season, contextual stuff, what's happening. 11, they missed the ball, they're in trouble. What are they going to do?
Right.
They're going to play the ball illegally, right? To try and prevent that. So, but again, it's we're just back in the swing of things again now. So, it'll take a little while. It'll take a little while to get to those situations. But as I said, we're going to watch lots of rugby in the next couple of weeks and referee. Okay.
So at this point, there's about 27 minutes left in the game. Army is down 17-7, and there's a weird tackle situation. Player gets to the horizontal, lands on his side. The tackler goes with him, kind of just flops him to his side. Really ends up taking the ball quick, and they score a penalty off this. So I let them go quick with it. Thoughts on, the guideline says anything past the horizontal, lands on a side or back, go to a yellow card. This, in the moment, felt weird. Like the tackle was going to be good. The player didn't control his body well. He kind of brings him over the top. It just looked odd. So I went with just the penalty here. And this is that instance of, I think, an escalation here to a yellow card may have cooled tempers down for later in the match when Army does end up getting a yellow card for just being stupid.
Anybody want to join in on that one? Do we have any siding commissioners here?
I feel attacked.
Oh, Mike, you just told me today. Congratulations. Floor is yours.
Right. Yeah. So, Tyler, look at the elements of the tackle. And what are the actions that the tackler's done? Does he have a clear and obvious lift?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's guilty count number 1. Then where's the ball carrier land?
Side and back.
Side and back, okay. And then he's broken the horizontal?
Yeah.
I mean, those are your 3 strikes. Once you have that clear and obvious lift, that he has to recover himself. The tackler is responsible for anything that happens at the point of contact if there's that lift. Well, any tackle, but the lift just it exacerbates it. So if he can't recover, that's on him. He doesn't have any other recourse in law.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good.
And because of the landing, it's a yellow only, right?
Yeah, yellow would be
Might-
appropriate, I think.
Yeah, yeah. If he landed on his neck and shoulders, I mean neck and sort of upper back, neck and head would be red, right?
You mentioned earlier you didn't have radios, but did you have ARs?
I did have ARs. I did not use them as much as I should have. I only used one of them for the scuffle that we kind of have later. It ended up just being a lot of shoving. It ended up being, I mean, we had a 3-hour delay due to lightning and stuff, so everybody was kind of out of sorts. So we didn't kick off until about 9 p.m. at night. So I was a little out of it, my hours almost at all. So that was something going forward that I have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I feel like if I see something like that, I don't know exactly what you saw, but from the video, if I see something like that, I'm definitely trying hard to remember to look at my ARs, because if they see something, they're going to have that flag out. And even if they don't have their flag out, maybe I want to just ask them what they saw before, making the call one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you're not going to listen to them or you don't expect anything from them, it buys you some time to think about it yourself.
Right. Yeah, it's a good. So this one's just a fairly easy, like an obvious tackler is getting out of the way, and he's far away from the breakdown, but he blocks the 9. Full body just stops him from getting to the play. Oh, is this clip a little bit too short?
Probably.
Okay.
23:33. We can go have a quick look at it.
Well, that would be good.
Oh, we'll just drag this thing. Okay. That's funny. Yeah, that's an easy penalty there.
Yeah, and he was a little bit upset, and he played but sir, I got out of the way. Sure, you did, but you got out of the way straight into the 9, and you stopped him from playing it. So sorry, not sorry.
And he got up in their space.
Yeah. So nothing to that. That was just an easy. If it looks obvious, odds are it is obvious. Sort of situation.
Yeah. I wonder if this updates just like that. No. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so what we want to do, we want the tackler to roll towards the touchline, right? So as soon as that player is getting up in that space, and they're preventing somebody from getting to the ball, obviously they're liable to penalty, right?
Right.
We want them to move quickly. We want them to get up. So, and I know the tackler was probably saying that, trying to milk a penalty, right?
Oh yeah, he was like, "Oh, but he ran into me." No, you ran into him.
Exactly.
This is the collapse run successful.
More, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a couple of interesting things. So are we okay with the transfer? It starts a little early, but I don't think he goes over any bodies to get it to the back.
Yeah.
Army starts losing dominance. It goes down. I didn't see anybody pulling it down. I think Army just lost dominance. It got driven back. People just slipped, and it's gone down. Are we seeing anything that I've missed between the transfer, Trinity driving them back, and then players just tripping over each other?
Yeah, I don't really see anything. I mean, the only thing is maybe number 5 is a little bit from the side in the beginning, but I don't really think so.
Referee's decision seems fine.
Yeah, I think that I just want to say something here, Tyler, what maybe you can take on board. And I know that we used to do this when the signal first came on. We used to do the signal that they took the ball in, and then the other team gets the scrum. But I think like in these games, especially when they broadcast, it looks like you gave the scrum to the other team and then you changed the scrum to the other team, right?
Yeah,
So
the guy
like,
in the background is like, "What the? Oh, yeah, that's refs,
yeah,
right? Yeah." So in
yeah,
hindsight,
yeah,
yeah, it's a scrum. It got brought in. It's going the other way. Yeah.
yeah. And that was the old school way of doing it. You know, I mean, we used to do that in I think the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, we used to do it that way. You know, I mean, could have even been 5 years ago. I can't remember that far back, but you'll notice that a lot of the top referees now, they'll always blow the whistle and show the scrum immediately,
Mhm.
you know, and then
Yeah.
they'll show them that they brought the ball in. So you don't have to get that poor player to freak out. Look at the player on the far side here. He's like, what? He's like, yay, no, yay.
Yeah, and the captain ends up getting up, and he's like, "Oh," and I was like, "No, it's yours. It's yours." So yeah, going forward, I'll definitely go. Yeah, it's a scrum to you guys because, yeah.
Tell the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Good stuff. Nice weather. Tig, you put two clips in here.
Yeah.
Which one should we look at first?
Do the scrum first, because I think this related to what you talked about a little bit in the Naira meeting. And I'll just preface this before you run it. Just hold it for 1 second. I think at the highest levels of the game, there has been a change in how scrum advantages are refereed. And you and I have talked about this, and Jamie and I have talked about this. And I think the three of us are kind of old school, but that's not what people are seeing on TV. So now play it, and I'll explain. So we're on a scrum advantage. And I think those of us who are old school, at this point, we would have considered advantage gained. Orange has been able to play the ball as they wish, fully set up, but they've gained no ground. And on the day, the ref considered advantage gained. But I think, and you and Jamie and I have talked about this, and I think the three of us largely consider that Orange had a stable enough platform at the third breakdown that this advantage is gained, but that's not how it's being played at the highest level. So I throw it up for discussion. Have I characterized you and Jamie correctly, that the three of us consider advantage would have been gained, but that's not how it's being played now?
I don't agree with your statement, but I would have said advantage over when the ball was won by the second ruck, sure. I would have said advantage over, but I don't necessarily agree. I think there's some really poor scrum advantages, and it's very inconsistent even in the World Cup. But Kat is on here, and she's refereeing a test match in a couple of weeks. So what are your thoughts, Kat? Is she still here? I think she might have gone to another meeting. Let's see who else is on here. That's Peter, Amanda, Amelia. Anybody? Thoughts?
Oh yeah, that's over.
Hey, advantage over, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even their line out to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel as well. But I think we're seeing things on television where the refs are not considering advantage over, where there's no breakthrough. And I'm quite content that we're going to tell people this advantage is over, or it should be over.
Yeah, like it's over here.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay. The next one,
I think there were some of the ones that you might talk about in if someone is always under pressure and they're moving backwards, like I've noticed, like you're talking about the World Cup, and they've definitely brought it back when teams have always been under pressure. You know, they try and push it a little bit.
That's not the case.
Not the case here. Yeah, no.
The next one,
controlled ball.
Yeah. The next one.
But before you get to the next one, I just want to say again, I think I said it in the other meeting, you're only going to call advantage over when when they are actually in control of the ball.
Yep.
So try not to call advantage over in the middle of the pass when the ball's in the air, because that player's going to knock it on then, right? And then you're going to be like, oh, I just called advantage over. But even in those situations where you've just called advantage over and somebody knocks on, like, as you call it, you can still go, okay, I'm going to go back. Sorry. You know, it's just fair.
The next one will happen just before you play it. It's going to happen very quickly. Mm-hmm. Watch the tackle in front of the goal. The referee played on. I'm fine with that, given how low the ball carrier gets. And I'm expecting that Amanda and I are going to say play on and that we're going to get outvoted.
What? That's the whole clip?
Yeah. Just didn't play, just play it slowly. That's the way he cut it.
So what are we looking for?
It's the contact on the first tackle. That's after. Right there, you'll see the ball carrier, and you see how low they are, and you see where the arm makes contact. Red maintains possession. The tackler is trying to get low, but clearly makes some arm contact with the head.
This is so amazing because I'm sure Mike Kelly didn't leave the meeting.
I had no trouble playing through, but the ref and I discussed.
Mike Kelly, are you still in the meeting?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Suddenly.
You're wishing you left, though, right?
It's difficult to see live, though. Eh?
Yeah, I mean,
I was
see a penalty kick here.
I was just gonna. This is Tim. I was just gonna say this is so hard to see live. I mean, this game's going so fast. It'd be really hard to call that in clear and obvious terms.
Mm-hmm.
No, the ref actually saw it at the time. He decided to play on because the ball carrier was so low down.
I mean, is there head contact? Yes. Is it direct? It's pretty direct. I don't think the force is very high, and you can mitigate down by the height of the ball carrier. I think at the very worst, we have a penalty here.
Right.
Great.
But he did play on, and that's as I said. I was prepared to get voted, and I was okay with the play on, but I was prepared for enough people to say penalty.
I think that the one thing you can definitely take out of these situations is that if you're not 100% sure, it's a mitigating factor, but it's never a mitigating factor to not penalize, right? So that would be the one situation that you can't mitigate from a penalty to no penalty, right? It has to, if it's foul play and you saw it, it's got to be a penalty minimum, right?
Sure.
I was happy down to the referee made a decision not foul play. That's
okay. Yeah,
I wanted to see what
I mean, it's difficult to see it, right? But if the referee saw it, then they should be identifying that as direct contact, maybe low force. So these are tough ones. These are very tough ones, especially to spot in the thing.
That's why I pulled it.
Yeah. But this is not something that you would actually cite, right, Mike? You just go like, should
not even close. It's nowhere near a red card threshold.
Yeah, yeah. Or even a CCW, right?
No, not even that, because that would also have to hit a red card threshold.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for those clips, Tig. So just a couple of things to go through. We talked about the penalty try at the scrum. So first of all, like if you have a scrum, we again want to referee every single scrum, right? You got to manage these scrums all the way through. You've got a lot of good teams that are very good at scrummaging. You got to manage it all the way through, make sure that they straight. And especially if one team is dominant, often what we do as referees, when one team is dominant, you sort of like lose hope in the scrum. But what we need to do is that even if the teams are dominant, they got to dominate legally. And before anything happens in the scrum, they've got to go forward straight. And if the defensive team decide to never unbind and just keep going backwards, you can't penalize them for going backwards. You can only penalize them for unbinding. Even the back rows, the locks, anyone unbinds in the scrum, they're liable for penalty. And then I think that Tig said too, is that there's no advantage to a penalty try. Penalty try is like the biggest reward anyone can get. So you would go straight to a penalty try. And in those situations where scrum is dominant like that, the whole team is under pressure. So it's not like one person that you're penalizing and yellow carding. So it's fine to give a penalty try without awarding a yellow card. And then foul play. We looked at the foul play situation with the lift, etc. If you're not 100% sure, it's a mitigating factor, right? And because we don't have replays or TMOs, and we don't always have even ARs to assist us, it's a mitigating factor if you're not sure, right? So, but it would still be a penalty. And especially early in the game, if there's foul play, blow it early, get it out of the game. Make sure everybody knows that this is not what's going to be allowed today, and put the onus onto players to play within the law when it comes to foul play, especially with these tackles and head contact. I think we'll become better over time as we see more of these situations. You can see when they go into contact, you can see when the head's being hit back, and when they're tackling, especially when it's an upright tackle, and it's always an upright tackle. Everyone's got different opinions about certain things that happen in the World Cup. But even if it's an upright tackle, when someone comes flying through the air and lands on you, it's not necessarily the same situation. The player's got to have time to make that decision. So just try and be reasonable as well. If it's something that's up to a red card that you might have missed, it'll be cited. So we, D1A have people looking at the games, and the coaches will escalate if they need to. Tackler, as we saw in that great penalty, they've got to roll to the sides, right? Got to roll to the sides. When they hit the ground, they've got to move. And if they haven't moved, we're not going to reward a legal player from poaching. Really, it's that simple. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and I talked about it in the last meeting too, is just the contextual refereeing. And part of it comes with watching a lot of rugby, increasing your knowledge of the game, and then also just being able to anticipate what's going to happen more. And the more you get into that mindset when you're watching the game, I'm sure we do it when you're watching the game as well. But what I want you to do is just to think about it more deliberately. So when you're watching the game, you're actually processing the information about what's going to happen next. And if you were the ref, what decision would you make? And I think the more that happens, especially at breakaways or, all parts of the game, like you go in the line out, well, this team is more dominant in the line out, and the scrum, one team is more dominant, and then it shifts. See what's happening in the scrum, what's going to happen in the next scrum. There's so many things that you can take out of the game, take out just from watching games and become a better referee. So watch a lot of rugby. It'll only make you better. And then I'm going to say this for the third time today. And the last thing that I'm going to say, second last thing. First of all, I want to say thanks everybody for committing to the competition. We really appreciate it. The next 3 weeks of assignments are out. Also, thank you very much to the ref coaches. They've got a lot of work to do. We've got a very small number of ref coaches. They're all great, and they put a lot of effort in. So make sure that you reach out to them and connect with them, and, keep moving forward as a group. We really appreciate that. Peter, again, congratulations on the USA, the Rugby Hall of Fame this weekend on Saturday. Peter will be inducted. Thanks for everything that you've done for the game, but you're a long way from finish. So we will see you in the next meeting when you'll be a little bit more famous.
And congratulations to Kat.
Yes, and to Kat, for getting the test match. New Zealand and Australia in a couple of weeks. But I think Kat jumped off. But very exciting. Very exciting. So well done, Peter. Well done, Kat. And let's take these things. I'll send out a update focus areas and the video of the meeting. So really appreciate everybody that contributed to the meeting and everybody for joining. We'll see you in a week and have great games this weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Go on.
Take care. Good night.